Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. Very happy to have you with us tonight, and very happy to have our guests as well. You'll see we have a full house here. We have 3 guests. We have dogs, which are down below. You can't see, but I promise you'll be seeing them later. And if you've been reading the news lately, listening to podcasts, listening to the radio, you know that service dogs, comfort dogs, any kind of dog that you can take on a plane, pheasants, what have you. They've been in the news a lot lately. And so we're going to talk tonight about service dogs, what the difference between the different kinds of dogs is. We're going to see some dogs who are in training and see what they're accustomed to doing, what they're being trained to do. And we're going to find out about a program that is put together by our guests tonight who are with Journey Together Service Dog LLC. And they have a program in cooperation with the Oshkosh Correctional Institute here in Oshkosh, and where inmates train the dogs, and it's a really neat program. So thanks to all of you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
To my right is President of Service Dog, Journey Together Service Dog, Brenda Cirricione. Did I get it right?
You got it.
All right, got it. And then to my left is Pam Schubert. She's a board member. And Jenny, is it?
Dubie.
Dubie, okay, like Dubie Brothers.
Like the Dubie Brothers.
Jenny Dubie, Jennifer Dubie is Vice President for Journey Together Service Dog LLC. And just very happy to have all of you guys here. Is it Inc. or LLC?
Incorporated.
Okay, so it's Journey Together Inc. Perhaps the crew can change that on our graphics before we start bringing them up. That is my mistake, and I'll take ownership for that.
It's all good.
Yeah. So you guys have been here before, but it's been a couple of years, and so you've got new dogs. None of us has changed, but the dogs have changed. So let's just, for anyone who's not familiar with what Service Dog Journey Together Service Dog Inc. does, give us a little background of how it got started, what your mission is. Who wants to field that one?
I'll do that.
Okay.
Journey Together Service Dog is a nonprofit based in Oshkosh. Our mission is to provide highly trained service dogs at no charge to qualified Wisconsin residents that have post-traumatic stress disorder, or we refer to it as PTSD. Okay. This can be veterans of war or victims of crime. We started, actually it's 3 years ago this month. We're very pleased.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
much.
much.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. It is a prison dog program. We did have a program in the prison about 6 years ago, a totally different program, and they started with a couple dogs. It was based out of Madison, and they wanted to start a program in the prison, so they got that with a lot of help and a lot of work. Got that program up and running. We were part of it, you were before it started, and I started soon after, and Pam jumped in too. And we started working with that organization, and we started with a couple dogs, ended up with about 15, and as the years went on, they had another partnership with another prison, so they started kind of taking back some of the dogs, stepping down. So instead of having 15 dogs, we were down 14, 13, 12. Our numbers were dropping, but we had a lot of men that were trained, and we had a lot of volunteers that were trained as well. So someone sitting at the table had a wonderful idea. We've got the men, we've got the space, we've got the support. Let's start a new program, and that's how Journey Together was born.
Okay, excellent. And before we get into the the specifics of the program at the prison here in Oshkosh, you had a really neat event that took place yesterday, and we're taping this on the 18th of October. So this was yesterday, the 17th of October. It was with the Oshkosh Police Department, and we have 5 different pictures here that we kind of want to bring up. The first one is with Chief Dean Smith. There he is. Why don't you guys, just as we go through these, tell us kind of who we're seeing and who the dogs are that we're seeing.
Well, the little one that's putting his face in somebody's palm, that would be Yates, who is about 14 weeks old. He is our golden retriever. And the very patient dog watching is Ember. She is a red Labrador.
Ember or Amber?
Ember with
Ember
an E.
with an E.
Ember, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Neat name.
Yeah.
And the next picture, here we have a couple officers.
Oh, that would be Yates again. I guess he's hogging the pictures there.
He's
Yeah.
photobombing everybody,
He
isn't he?
is. They were so happy to have puppies there that day. It was a lot of fun.
Sure. And the next one?
There's Ember
Ember.
getting a bunch of attention too. Yes, she's such a good girl.
Yep. And then we've got two others of just the dogs. they're kind of similar pictures, but it shows them with the state of Wisconsin flag, the American flag, under the emblem of the Oshkosh Police Department. And and there's the second picture. It's just, I don't know, tell us about, because this really was a neat thing, tell us about the fundraiser that they did.
So we were notified a little while ago that every year the police department does a fundraiser, which I didn't know. I thought that was fantastic. Last year they contributed to, I think it was Hurricane Katrina survivors. And this year they wanted to do something a little more local. So through the Oshkosh Community Foundation, we have Carlene Grabner, and she was talking with the police department and gave them information about our program, and they jumped on it. They thought it would be an excellent program for them to provide some funding for. So they were able to pitch in some money, and if they paid, the men could grow a beard all of October, all through November. The women can have their hair touching their shoulders. Some of the other people can wear jeans certain days.
I think that was it.
I think that was it, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And as I understand it, the officers all paid up front.
Yes.
And they presented you guys with a nice check
Yes, they
of,
did.
drum roll please.
Drum roll, please. It was over $3,000.
Over
yeah.
$3,000.
Just a little
That's
over,
great.
yeah.
And so now, what will that money be used for? Because, and we'll talk about where the dogs come from and if
Sure.
they're donated or not. But what do you have this money earmarked for something in particular?
I wouldn't say anything in particular. We do all of the money that we raise or that's raised for us through fundraisers goes directly back to the program. We have no paid positions. Everyone is a volunteer. So we do have the purchase price of the dogs. We have all the vet bills, the shots, food, treats, leashes, collars, vests. We get all of our dogs. They have eye exams. We also have hips x-rayed before they get spayed or neutered. We also pay for spay and neuter. Some of our labs get their elbows tested as well. So there's a lot of expenses that go in for our program.
Okay, great. So this is one of the things that we've been hearing in the news a lot lately. People wanting to take a pheasant, I think, as an emotional support animal on a plane. We've heard all kinds of silly things. I think that despite best efforts of organizations such as your own, there is confusion between what is a service dog, what is a therapy dog, especially a certified therapy dog, and then what is an emotional support animal. And I guess it's up to the airlines as to whether or not a pheasant or a peacock would be an emotional support animal. But we have a really neat graphic that you guys put together that shows exactly what the distinctions are. So let's talk about this. I'm hoping that folks watching can see this. But for those who are listening to us on the radio, let's go through the list and talk about what the distinctions are.
Well, more so the emotional support would be for the person who's holding the animal. It would be for them to help them with their anxieties and things like that. They don't have public access that way. The therapy dog would be certified. They would be going to like a nursing home or somebody who's at the other end of the leash, and they would be getting permission to go to public places. They wouldn't have public access to everything.
They would or would not?
Would not.
Would not, okay.
They would have special permission to go to certain places, like a hospital, the airport, a nursing home, facility dog like that.
Okay, can we please bring that graphic back up? There we go, thank you. And then a service
And a
dog,
service-
because all the check marks are there for that one.
A service dog, even the dogs in training, have public access to everywhere in public, because during the training we want to introduce that dog to every possible thing that when we place that dog, somebody may want to go to. The service dog is for the person holding the leash, the handler. It's not to be greeted by anybody, so if you see a service dog in public, ask permission, but it's more or less working for that person. It's an extension of them.
Okay.
So you wouldn't pet a wheelchair or a cane or a crutch.
Some people
So
might.
the service dog is pretty much that. It's helping them get through whatever they need to go to.
That's a very good distinction. You wouldn't pet a wheelchair, you wouldn't pet a cane or a walker, so therefore you don't pet the dog. But you know, we do see in society some animals in places that aren't wearing any type of uniform or jacket, and then we do see other animals that are wearing uniforms or jackets. How does one know as they see a person and an animal if it's a service dog, a therapy dog, or, you know, just a dog for emotional support?
Well, the dog should be behaving, for one. I mean, you're not going to see a dog in a restaurant that's eating off the plates or anything. That wouldn't be a service dog. A service dog is helping that person get through the area that they're doing out in public. If you could always ask them, can I pet your dog? You know, they may say yes or no, or, you know, that way.
Yeah.
Therapy, people who have registered therapy dogs will approach you and they'll say, I have a therapy dog, would you like to pet it?
Oh, okay.
So they're trained to, like when I take my personal dog to the hospital or to on a visit someplace that I've been invited to come to, I will approach people and I will say, would you like to pet my dog? Because not everybody likes dogs. So you don't want to force a dog on somebody, especially in a hospital setting. I wouldn't enter the room. I will ask that at the doorway. Because if they don't like dogs or they're allergic to dogs, I don't want to make matters worse for them.
Sure.
And they have every right to say yes or no, depending on how they feel. You won't see a therapy dog in a restaurant. They don't have access rights for that. So more often than not, your dog, I'm sorry, he's snoring. So,
Oh, is that what that was?
Yes.
Oh my God. That was very loud.
so you can tell he's learned to be relaxed, which is what we want.
Very clearly, yes.
So no, but generally, if it's a dog to be pet, the people will approach you and offer to let you pet the dog. That would be the way to think about it.
All right. You know, I think, and this just comes from the way most of us were raised, the things that we saw, the things that we experienced. You know, we would think of a German Shepherd, for example, as a seeing eye dog, perhaps, or a police dog. We would think of a Labrador as a seeing eye dog, and those kinds of things. But every person who has a disability is not in a wheelchair. They don't necessarily have mobility issues. More often than not, I think that disabilities are kind of hidden.
They
You
are.
know, you
Absolutely.
don't see them. And so many people get upset if they see a therapy dog or they see a service animal in a store and the person is able-bodied and walking. You know, they think, well, who are you to just walk in here with any old dog claiming it's a therapy or I'm sorry, a service dog. And yet, I think that as society is something that we need to kind of get clear in our heads. And I don't think that we can drive that home enough, that a service dog isn't just helping people who are blind or in wheelchairs. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember is somebody who's disabled doesn't really want to wear this badge of I'm disabled and you have a right to know why I'm disabled. They could have a diabetic alert dog with them. They might have diabetes. Some service dogs are trained to work with children who are autistic. There's so many ways to train dogs now to help people that your job isn't to judge, right? If the dog is well behaved, just let it alone at that. If you have concerns about it, talk to the store owners. The store owners have policies and procedures. They know how to screen a dog, on whether or not it's a service dog. But if it's not bothering anybody and it's well behaved, just don't judge it.
Yeah. Yeah, or the person.
Right.
And that is one thing that I also wanted us to talk about just for a moment or two is as a store owner, if I was a store owner, what if someone wants to come into my store or my shop and they have a service dog with them, what can I ask them? What am I not allowed to ask them under law?
You have two questions that you may ask, and the dogs are provided access due to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So you can ask if that dog is a service dog to help you with a disability, and you can ask if the dog has been trained to perform tasks for you. So a task, for example, if I had a dog with me and the dog was trained for somebody who was blind, but I didn't have blindness I could legally see, that wouldn't be a service dog because the dog couldn't provide a service for what I needed. So it's a combination of what the dog can do and what the person needs. So the other thing in the state of Wisconsin is the state has allowed to extend the rights for service dogs to include service dogs in training. That is not true of every state. That is not a national law, that is a state law. So under that, Wisconsin had the foresight and the insight to understand that a fully trained service dog can't get there without having access with a trainer and learning how to properly behave in a restaurant, in a hotel, and in all other places. So we have, in the state of Wisconsin, additional rights extended to those who have dogs in training.
Okay.
And that falls under different laws.
Okay. A store owner or a restaurant owner or whoever, they cannot, as I understand it, ask you to have the dog perform certain tasks.
That's correct.
Okay. But refresh our memories once again, Brenda. They can ask what two things?
They can ask if this is a service dog for your disability and has he been trained to perform tasks.
Okay, and that's the extent of it.
That
Can't
is.
make the dog perform anything. Okay,
And you can't ask the person what their disability is.
right. Okay. All right, excellent. And service dogs are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And again, tell me once again, because I'm trying to kind of grapple with all this, are therapy dogs covered or not?
No.
No.
Okay, just service dogs.
Correct.
But if a shop owner wanted to make an allowance, they certainly could, but it's not covered under law that they must.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about the dogs. You said that they're for people who have PTSD, and they are trained by the inmates at the Oshkosh Correctional Institute. Was that a challenge, Brenda, or whoever wants to answer it? Was that a challenge getting the prison on board with this program, or were they pretty easy to work with?
The institution has been wonderful to work with. However, we have to remember that it's a governmental organization, and as part of that, they have a variety of policies and procedures that they had to work through in order to make the program possible. We've had incredible support from Warden Judy Smith, as well as Rex Smith, and we have some officers that have been with us since the beginning of time. That's how I think about this sometimes. It's been a long number of years, but we couldn't have made that happen without the warden's support. And really, they've all paved the way. They've allowed us to extend things that you would normally not see at the institution. And it's in the name of training the dogs. So some of the things that we take in to teach the dogs to be exposed to things, we have a wheeled cart and we have a purse in there. And, things that you just wouldn't expect that you would need to have in there. They've allowed the men. So for instance, the purse scenario was we have a client who has a severe nut allergy, and she kept her EpiPen in her purse. So the men were able to train the dog to get her purse to recover it, but they needed a training device, so the dog learn those things. So we've had a wide variety. We have buttons for them to push. We have agility equipment for them to learn to be confident on. Just a number of things that you just wouldn't expect. And that support through the institution has been incredible to make the project work.
Well, I know that the dogs actually live right at the prison.
Yes.
with the inmates who are training them, and we have a great shot of one of theirs. Now, who is this that we're looking at?
That dog is Echo.
Echo. I've got a dog
is-
named Echo.
he's-
Doesn't look like that though.
No. He's a working service dog, so he is. He has been matched with his person, and he's off doing his thing.
All right, great.
So-
But you know, he looks like he was a pretty good sized dog.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, you know, the cell I think looks nicer than a lot of the cells probably do when we think of prison cells. But you know, it probably has to be because that inmate is got a special job working with a dog, doing a very special and important program.
The interesting thing about that picture is the men give up basically half of their living space to have the crate and the toys and everything else that goes along with
looked
it.
like it.
Yeah, you know, they're on bunk beds and things like that, and they understand that that's kind of part of it with the program. The inmates are all volunteers. They all have to have other jobs at the institution. So just like we're volunteers, they also are volunteers. They don't get paid for training with the dogs, or they're required when we go in and instruct. They are required to attend that. They don't get paid for any of those things. Very much the program is intended to help the men gain some job skills, and we hope for them. They fill out a written application, for instance, to become part of the program. They do a panel interview, which some of them have never done before, to become part of it. So every step of the way, our intent is they may not handle dogs when they leave the institution, but if they have job skills that they can take with them, that's a success in and of itself.
Sure. And how many inmates and dogs do you have paired up at any given time, or does that fluctuate?
It fluctuates. Right now we have 15 dogs at the institution. We have 41 inmates. Dogs are assigned to a team of 2 handlers. So like you saw the bunk beds, there'd be 2. And then we have other teams that take care of the dogs. If the 2 primary handlers are working, for example, we call them sitters.
Okay.
They take the dogs and they work with the dogs in between. They can do special work with them on special things, and then they're kind of waiting in the wings for when we get another dog and bring it into the program.
Sure. And do the same inmates continue then, like when a dog graduates the program and goes off to work with and live with its new owner, its new person? Do the same inmates get a new dog then, or?
It depends. One of the things we do is every quarter we rotate the dogs. So a dog that's been there for a little bit over a year would have had at least 4 different teams.
Okay.
During the time that we're there. We're trying to foster teamwork.
Okay.
We're trying to have all of the men in the program invested in all of the dogs. So it doesn't matter what your role was, but we just recently had one of our dogs, Indigo, graduate, and he was there 2 years. Almost every one of the men that have been in the program had him at some point. So they all share in the success, they all share in the training, they all share in the pain when we're trying to teach something for them. And the dogs actually turn out better from the standpoint of if I have a dog, I might not notice that it has a glitch in its training. Handing my dog to somebody else, all of a sudden it'll expose something that I didn't know the dog wasn't doing well.
Sure.
So we can improve the dog's training as part of it as well.
Okay. You were talking a few minutes ago, Brenda, about different dogs being trained on different types of equipment and so forth. And we've actually got a couple pictures of some equipment. Tell us what we're seeing here.
That actually is one of our dogs that graduated this year. That's Halo. He's standing on, it's called Fit Paws equipment. So what he's learning to do is he's gaining core strength through that.
Okay.
So he'll stand on it, the ball rolls, the blow up piece that his back legs are on goes up and down independently.
Okay.
So we can do strength training on the dogs without heavy joint issues. So we have young dogs, so we can do strength training without overly extending them on it. So, and they love that stuff. That stuff
Sure.
is just the most fun in the world to them.
It looks
So,
neat. And then what is the other picture?
Those are our puppies. Those are little guys. The one on the left, the chocolate Labrador, is actually here. He doesn't look like that anymore.
He's bigger.
Yes, he's quite a bit bigger. But even the babies can learn non-impact strengthening, but it also builds their confidence. When they're little like that, they think it's fun, but they learn to walk on uneven surfaces, and sometimes they flip it, and they have to overcome it and not become afraid of it.
Sure,
So-
absolutely. Well, we have dogs here, as we mentioned, and I hate to wake them up. I think I actually heard a second one snoring not too long ago. But why don't we, I don't know which dog you want to show first, but
Sure.
let's bring
Do
out
you want to get
one.
Patton out?
Yeah, Patton's ready. He's
All
awake.
right, Patton's
He's already
ready,
got
and we
his
just
nose
saw
piece
him,
off.
so.
And you have to remember that these are all dogs in training, so you never know exactly what you're going to
What
get.
they're going to get.
Of course,
So,
yes, they
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
graduated yet, so.
It's always an adventure.
Here, let me unhook you from the microphone.
I'll take it all with me.
Oh, yeah, we don't want that. All right, and you are ready to
Whoop,
rock
wait.
and roll here.
Back. There you go. He's all set.
Where would you-
Right here.
Why don't you just come right out here and we will pick you up on camera number 3 here. And so this is Patton.
Good boy.
Patton.
Yes. Good boy.
Can we maybe zoom in a little closer and, now what are you going to have
You're
him
gonna
do?
cross first?
Going to do cross.
Okay, which is what?
So Patton's been trained that if we were in public and somebody approached me and I felt uncomfortable that they were too close to me, I can give the dog the command to cross over and come in front of me.
Okay.
Almost instinctively, without a doubt, people will take a step back just because that happened. He's also leaning against her legs, and while he's leaning, he can give you confidence. So your dog is there, you can feel, if you're feeling anxious or concerned, you're able to use that. The dogs are all trained so that they like to have their ears rubbed. So you can use that as a confidence method as well. On it, try to do it, there you go. And then check. This is often used by somebody who's concerned if somebody is approaching them from behind and is easily startled. So this would be an example. It's not real interesting for him right now to, have to look behind at nothing. But like in a grocery store line would be a great example where our clients sometimes will use this. Our Labradors in particular are easy because somebody starts approaching you from behind and their tail will start wiggling or they'll start moving around so that something is going on. Different schools use different commands for it, but the idea behind it is just give me confidence that somebody isn't going to come up behind me and startle me.
Sure. So the operative word there, or the key word for the dog is check, and then he immediately turns or she to look behind you.
And every school uses a different word for their command. We use it, it's simple to say check behind me. That's where it came from. Cross means cross in front of me, but it varies by school to school. But generally these are very common PTSD skills that our clients really appreciate.
Sure. Now, how old is Patton, and how long has he been in the program?
Patton was a year old.
Oh, you don't have a mic on anymore, dear.
Oh, I can say, Patton was a year old in August. He came to us at 8 weeks, so he's been with us for a little bit over a year. These young dogs like this, while we can get them pretty well trained, they're just not mentally mature enough to do the work of a service dog. So we need to give him time just to emotionally grow up and mentally grow up, and we have great hopes for him to be placing him in the future.
All right. Great. Nice job, Patton.
Jenny, are you going to show babysitting?
Oh, sure.
And
I
Pam,
don't
nice
have any
job for you
treats.
too. Here,
Sure.
let me get you hooked back up here, and
Here, I can give
get
you a
him
couple of
situated. And we will get you hooked back up. There we go. So this is Yates.
So Yates is just starting, right? He's learning that learning is fun. That's what we want to do at this stage of the game for him and stuff. And they make mistakes, and that's how we teach them. But every step of the way, we want them happy. We want them liking to work, liking to learn. So we spend a lot of time. A lot of our training is games, to give the dogs an opportunity to just really bond. And just, again, he just needs to emotionally grow up. And the dogs at the prison, a lot of people say, do service dogs ever get to be dogs? Well, they get training on and off during the course of the day, but the whole rest of the day they're playing with their people, they're running, they're jumping, they're walking on the course. We have a big fenced-in yard in the back that they can run and play in and stuff like that. So this is what he's doing now is what the dogs do a large part of the day, just like everybody's pets. So that's a big part of it.
And now I know that just for purposes of this show, his jacket or his uniform, as it were, is staying on. When they are just playing and being, as you said, just dogs, does the jacket come off then, or does it stay
Yes.
on all the time? It comes off.
Comes
then.
on.
We
And
use
is-
it to cue the dog.
Okay, I was just
So,
going to say,
yep.
is that to help the dog understand the difference?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
We expect the dog to behave regardless of whether or not it's on, but we do use that as a training tool for the dogs to help them as well. In the state of Wisconsin, for public access, for dogs in training, they are required to wear a vest or a harness. So that is also fulfilling the state requirements.
Okay.
So,
And who is our third dog here, the big snorer? Okay.
So-
Now, you won't have a mic on, so
they have to talk.
Oh, okay.
so you guys can talk.
This is Midnight.
Midnight.
Midnight, yes.
Right here, good boy. You said.
Good boy. Midnight knows a lot of cool things, so Brenda can show you some
And how old
things.
is Midnight?
Let's see how old
He'll
is
be
he?
2 in January.
Thank you.
Two in
in January.
January.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is something when someone has PTSD, when we're interviewing them, we'll say, we'll ask them what their tell is. So a tell is something that they will do that's kind of a cue that we can teach the dog to learn from. Some people rub their face. Some people might clear their throat. Some people will bounce their legs. So if Brenda is a client and she has, that's her tell. If you notice, as soon as she started bouncing her leg, Midnight jumped up and he is giving pressure to her leg, which will help a person that is experiencing anxiety or whatever they're going through. That will be calming for them. The pressure of the dog will help them.
Can we see that again?
Sit down.
Good boy. So, and if he's resting or relaxing or something, he should be able to pick up that cue.
Okay.
So we're going to see how she just
Oh, wow.
barely started and
Yep.
he jumped right up.
Yep.
So, absolutely good job.
That's
So
excellent.
part of it is he'll be trained over time. He's kind of on the early stages of it, so he's still getting treats for it.
Yes.
But we'll train them to be really persistent.
Yes.
That they'll demand attention,
Yes.
which will help the person.
Okay, all right. Are we hearing her okay, even though she doesn't have a mic on? I think we are. But she's just tell us again what you just said, Brenda,
Sure.
and I'll hold the mic up for you, and then I'll help you get it hooked back up.
What I was saying was Midnight's early on this stage, on this activity, so he's learning to put pressure on, but I'm using treats because he's on an early stage on it. Their job is to be persistent and to keep interrupting me until I acknowledge them. That tends to help our person bring them back and bring them out of some of the anxiety and remember that they have a friend in the room with them.
Okay. All right, excellent. Let us get you hooked back up here, and then we can continue our conversation. Now, he's a boxer, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, here, let me get you hooked. Or if you want to do it, there you go. So he's a boxer. We've had a golden retriever and a chocolate lab. Chocolate lab. We've got just a fantastic picture here of multiple dogs in a room, and I mean, look at those different dogs. I mean, we've got a liver-spotted
smorgasbord.
Dalmatian.
Yeah.
We've got a poodle. We've got a lab, a boxer. And these are all dogs that are in your program or have been in your program?
Yes. On the top, the boxer, the black dog, which is a rescue dog, and then the Briard are all three working service dogs. He is in the middle row, way, as I look at the picture, way to the left, and Patton is next to him. We have Ross, who's a facility dog for Christine Ann Domestic Abuse Center. He's working there. That's the little guy next to the
Dalmatian.
Dalmatian.
Okay.
On the bottom row, the apricot poodle, that's Lola. She's getting ready to find a job. The yellow lab on the bottom row is Indigo. He just got placed a couple weeks ago. He is a facility dog for a school for children with special needs. And Kaya's on the bottom there as well. He went to a private individual who's used to having a poodle service dog, and she's finishing his training for what she needed.
Oh, how very cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, again, we see all these different sizes and different breeds of dogs, and I think it just goes to show that a dog does not have to necessarily be a certain breed or a certain size. They can be any breed or any size. Are there some dogs that just work naturally better for certain tasks than others?
Internationally, Labradors are the preferred breed. They have 65 to 70% of all service dogs are Labradors. They're highly food motivated, so they're easy to train. And schools that breed their own dogs are going to specialize in a particular breed because it's easy to do that. In our case, because we work with a lot of different breeders and a lot of different people, we have a bigger variety. It turns out to be a really interesting experience, but it's also good for the inmates at the prison to learn different training styles.
Sure.
And, some people need a dog that doesn't shed. There's somebody in their home who has dog allergies. Every dog isn't for everybody. When we decide a dog is ready to place and we have a client, we'll offer the dog, but the client might say, yeah, I don't think a boxer's for me. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. We'll look for another dog that might be coming up and might meet their needs and stuff like that. So, yes, we have a wide variety. We also are experimenting with breeds that you don't see anyplace. Our bearded collie, for example, is doing outstanding, and that's just not a common breed you'd see for this type of work.
You guys did a presentation at the Coughlin building a few months back. Was the bearded collie there or no? For some reason, a bearded collie is sticking in my mind, but I don't know if it was there that I saw it.
Echo
I don't
was
know.
there with his person.
Echo was there. That's our Briard.
Right.
I don't know if we had any
I don't
bearded.
know if we.
Sawyer is the bearded collie we have. He's actually in the picture with the police department. He's doing the beard competition with the officers. We're trying to see who can grow the best beard over the 2 months. So he had a head
It's always going
start.
to be a dog.
He did have a head start.
Yeah. He did. So now, where do your dogs for the program come from?
We get our dogs from different places. We have some breeders that we've been working with for a number of years. And then some of them have heard about our program and are interested in seeing if their dogs might work for us as well. Most of our dogs we purchase. I know some people ask, why don't we use rescue dogs? We did try some rescue dogs. Our reasoning is we like to know the parentage for a couple of generations because we want to make sure, when I said earlier, we're checking the dogs for their eyes, their hips and elbows for the labs. We want to make sure that the dogs have a healthy lineage for a number of generations back. So because we're giving our dogs away, we want to make sure that they're as healthy as possible.
Sure.
And when you're getting a rescue dog, it doesn't mean that a rescue dog wouldn't end up being a good service dog. It's just that for us, we want to make sure that we know the parentage and once again, making sure that they come from healthy elbows and eyes and are going to be able to have a long working life.
Sure,
as
absolutely.
Well.
Now, do these dogs have to go back to the prison tonight?
Well, are you taking yours on a sleepover?
Mine is not coming for a sleepover, so I'll be returning him tonight.
Yes.
Did they have to get a special pardon from Warden Smith to come here tonight?
Yes, they have furloughs.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to kidnap or dog nap that little Yates before the night's over. they're all adorable, but because I've got a golden retriever mix who looked just like that when he was a pup, I just, my heart, I see him and my heart just melts.
Well, then you can join our program and become a volunteer, and you can take him out with you.
I would love to do
You
that.
could do
I would
that.
love to do that, and I'm going to
Absolutely.
hold you to that.
Yes.
So how long does the training take? I know we talked in terms of about 2 years. Is it ever shorter? Is it ever longer?
Yeah, as Brenda was mentioning earlier, we like our dogs to be physically mature but also emotionally mature, and some dogs mature just like some people do, some a little bit sooner than others. So about 2 years is when we're looking at they should be emotionally and physically mature, ready to go. When we feel that they've reached that point, then we would look for a client for them. Once we have a client and a potential dog match, then we go ahead and ask the person. They all have the option of coming in and working directly with the handlers of the dog that they're going to be getting, which is phenomenal because not only are they working with the people that have been working with the dog for a number of months, but the men also get a lot out of it too because they're learning to communicate, they're learning to work as a team, and it's just once again a great opportunity for everyone. And so far, of the 9 dogs that we've placed, the 7 service dogs have all had the people that are getting the dog come into the prison, which is absolutely fantastic. So we've had some people that it's taken 18 months to finish the training, and then we've had somebody that came in and just within a matter of 2 months maybe, they were
wow.
finished. So
Holy cow.
they were experienced dog handlers, not the leash. So it kind of depends on the person and their handling skills and do they feel comfortable and what do they need the dog trained for. The men can train the dogs to do sheets and sheets, pages and pages of commands and even fun stuff. But when the client is chosen, then we ask them specifically, what would you like the dog to do? Do you need the dog to turn on lights for you? Do you need the dog to apply pressure to your leg if you're having an episode of some sort? There's lots of things that we can train the dog for. So depending on what they specifically need, we will finish up their training to match the specific needs of the person getting the dog. So once again, it depends on what they all need.
Sure. Now, does every dog that comes into the program graduate? Or, you guys are laughing, so I'm assuming that that's a no.
Well,
Some change careers.
yes.
Some change careers, good way to put it.
Yes.
What kind of percentage, if you can put a number on it, would you say?
Is it like
We're running at about a third of our dogs will ultimately become service dogs. They'll meet our standards, and they'll go on to be able to do that. And that's pretty close to the industry norm. We run slightly lower, but a lot of the other schools that run higher are breeding their own dogs. So they're taking the best of the best female, the best of the best male that for their purposes and their work, and they're breeding them and they're ending up with puppies that do the same thing. Because we have so much breed diversity, we kind of don't know what we might see on personality once in a while. So our dogs, if they don't make it, and they're a purebred that came from a breeder, they go back to the breeder. And we work with the breeder to get a replacement puppy because we really didn't want to lose that dog. We really, we've invested in that dog and we really would have liked to see them to succeed on it. If they're a rescue dog, then we place them because they will never go back to rescue once they come to us. They are our responsibility until they have their new people and their new family that will own them and live with
So
them.
there are some rescue dogs that you guys have, but like you said before, Jen, you want to know, the history of the, dog going
absolutely.
back a couple of years.
But
or
we've
so.
tried a number of dogs, a number of rescue dogs. So
If we can get them younger, we have
Yeah.
a better odds of success. And that's mainly because those dogs haven't had a lot of trauma in their life. The younger we get them, the less likely they are to have had trauma. So, and that's a generality, but he's just sniffing the floor. But
I
if you
wasn't sure
don't-
if that was a sniff or a snore.
yeah, he's got opinions on what he's doing there. But when we get them young, we can start training them young, and we can teach them that wobbly things on the floor aren't scary, and that's much easier to do when they don't have a background of being afraid of wobbly things.
Sure, yeah.
Right. So that's why.
Are there, when someone, when you're going to a breeder, for example, to get a dog, Are there certain things that you do, before you even take that dog, are there certain things that you do to kind of test to see if you think it would be a good dog for the program?
Yep. Most of the breeders that we work with are extremely experienced breeders. So we will talk about attributes. And those breeders have spent 8+ weeks with those dogs. They know which puppy is this or that or something else. So it's not so much about us picking the puppy as picking the skills and what the dog will be able to do. So for example, one of the biggest reasons dogs won't make it in our program is because they bark. Because in public, that, you know, if we had dogs here, and we're hoping that none of them are going to bark, but you know, if you have dogs that interrupt and bark, it draws unnecessary attention to the person, and they don't want that attention. That's negative, right? So if a litter is a loud litter and does a lot of barking, that's not going to be a litter for us to take a puppy from, because it already right from the beginning has less odds of success. Hi, come here. You can stop. Yes.
Giving us input.
Yes, he's got his own set of inputs on it.
Well, we
too,
get
right?
get a mic on him.
That's
now.
right.
He wants to give input.
Good boy.
Attach it right to his fur collar.
Oh, you don't want to hear the snorting. You know, there's a funny story about the whole snoring thing. When we started the program and we had a couple dogs that snored, I was horrified. I'm like, well, we have to career change these dogs because they snore? And in talking to other groups, they're like, that's like the best thing. That dog is going to make the entire room calm down. If there's so little going on that even the dog fell asleep and is snoring, he's kind of sending signals that this is a safe place to be. I'm comfortable here.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
So we do laugh at it, though, because they don't know. So
Yeah, they don't know we're making fun or having fun at their
Right.
expense. Does the confinement of being in a prison, does that maybe, can it send a wrong signal to a dog about what life on the outside is really like?
That's a good question.
our so that's where our volunteers come in,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So there's things that they'll never see in the prison. They'll never see a squirrel. They see rabbits. There's tons of rabbits at the prison. And it's never totally dark. So we have to go out of our way to teach our dogs to not be afraid of the dark.
Okay.
That would be examples. They don't see kids in Halloween costumes. They don't, you know, there's a million things. They won't see an umbrella. They won't see roller skates and scooters. There's thing after thing after thing. So that's where our volunteers come in, and our volunteers take them out, get them grocery shopping. Now we're rolled over, and you know, we're just making ourselves at home. So that's where our volunteers come in. We have our dogs go out across all 15 dogs. They leave the prison 100 times a month.
Wow.
They go out to work with me. They go to work with Pam. They come to an outing like this. From baby on, they're doing that. One of our most recent dogs that we placed had gone out on 190 outings with 40 different people before we placed him.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that community support that we get is incredible, because everybody's investing just a tiny little bit. It's like kind of a Lego. We're kind of building it all up, and everybody puts their Lego in. So.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's a lot. And so let's talk a little bit about your volunteers. So what do you look for in volunteers with your program?
We love people that are interested in dogs. We, as Brenda mentioned, we need the dogs to go absolutely everywhere. As you said too, we take them shopping. I've taken them when I get my hair done. We take them downtown. You'll see them frequently at the farmer's market. I mean, we literally take them everywhere. So when a volunteer says they're interested in volunteering with our program, we're like, great, and we go through the orientation with them, and wherever they can take the dog, as Brenda said, the more things we can get them to see that they normally wouldn't see in a prison is going to make them one step closer to being finished and going to their person.
So now that raises a question in my mind. I know that we talked about this before, and what a store owner can or cannot ask and that kind of thing. Do you explain to them when you're bringing a dog in that, or does the volunteer explain that they are volunteering and helping to train the dog and get them acclimated to different things?
Yeah, we've run into that in certain areas. I'd say for the most part, we've been very welcome And if we run into someone that's not quite sure and they say you can't have a dog in here, that's a great time for doing some education. And if someone still insists that we leave, we're like, okay, we'll step out, or our volunteers know that they'll step out and they contact one of us, and we do some education.
You do some education.
Absolutely. And that's what this whole thing is about. I mean, when we first started, everybody wanted to come up and they wanted to pet the dogs, and as you said, you don't pet a wheelchair, and so more and more people, at least for sure in our community here, know now when they see a dog in a vest, oh, you can't pet that dog is working. So that part has been really, really helpful for us. So the word is getting out, so we're hoping, and when we do presentations, we tell people that. Schools are great. We always tell the kids, now you've seen the dogs, you know they're working. Now you tell all your friends when you see a dog out in public and it's wearing a vest, don't bother the dog. So people are really catching on to that. So that's been really, really helpful.
That is a good thing. Obviously, we know how this benefits the people who are going to be getting the dogs. How does it benefit the inmates? Because they're an integral part of this.
Absolutely.
So and I know I've seen some pictures of one inmate in particular who was very skilled at grooming a dog. Boy, I tell you, if I had his skill, I could set up shop and probably get rich. But and you can talk a little bit about him if you'd like. But it must benefit the inmates in some way.
Absolutely. Like we talked about a little bit before, we're looking for job skills. That's one of the things that we're trying to give them opportunities on. We have 2 programs at the prison. There's a dog grooming certificate that they can get through Fox Valley Technical College, where they go through classroom training, and then a groomer comes in and teaches them how to groom dogs so that they could become a dog groomer. The other program that we have is a dog training instructor program. That program is hard to explain because it's not about them teaching dogs. That program is about the inmate learning how to teach somebody to teach a dog. So when you think about that, they need to understand how to train a dog, but more importantly, they have to have the communication skills, the ability to goal set. Adult education skills is really what's coming into play there, right? How do I communicate to another adult on how they handle their dog? So that program really is intended to help them and is to give them opportunities. When they finish, they maybe will handle dogs, they maybe won't. Either way is okay. But if they've learned goal setting, if they've learned some basics of finance, if they've learned how to run a grooming shop or something like that, great. We're all for it. So however it'll come into play for them. The inmates talk a lot about the job satisfaction, I guess I'll call it job satisfaction, of training a dog and seeing the client and seeing how the dog really changes the client and how much the dogs mean to the client. They'll talk about that a lot, about how it's life-changing for them. It's interesting how attached the men are. And there's a lot of tears when a dog graduates and leaves.
I'm sure.
All around, the officers, us as volunteers, the inmates. It's a really special thing to see that. And they're getting a chance to change somebody's life for the better. And they take that job very seriously.
Sure. I know you guys are still a relatively young program, but you may not have seen this yet, but at some point, a dog is going to pass away. They never live as long as they should, I'm sure you've not experienced that yet, but are you prepared for that, and how do you prepare the client for that? And then the second part of that, I guess, would be, what kind of a backup plan do you have then for when a dog does pass away?
So we'll have 2 scenarios. We hope that we have the scenario that the dog needs to retire, as opposed to dies while he's working in some capacity on it. A client that has a dog that needs to be retired or loses their dog will come to the top of our list.
Okay.
Sometimes people aren't ready for that other dog right away, so coming to the top of the list isn't a big deal. And they'll say, I'm not ready for it. I just can't deal with it yet. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it on that. One of the other things that we do, and we're a little bit unique on this as well, but when people apply to us, one of the first things we tell them is make sure you apply to multiple places. And the reason for that is if you can find a dog faster from somebody else, more power to you, and we're thrilled for you, because at the end of the day, it's about getting you help. And if we can't help you as fast as somebody else can, we're okay with that. We don't have a problem with that at all, because it's still a win.
Sure, absolutely. We're down to like about 3 minutes or so yet. What other things do you need volunteers to do? Is this the main thing that you need them to do? Are there other roles that volunteers can play?
We have somebody who volunteers with us. We will find stuff that they like to do.
Absolutely.
We would never turn anybody away. We're getting ready. We're starting to get to the point that we need to start writing formalized policies. If we're going to apply to the Assistance Dogs International Group, we need to have our policies and procedures all well documented. We have a website. We have Facebook that all needs to be maintained. We have snoring dogs that you can just like cuddle. And our dogs, people kind of explain our dogs like library books from the standpoint of, we have some people that take the dogs for a week at a time, and they do sleepovers and things like that. We have other people that take the dogs for 2 hours. And we accommodate any of those types of outings. We also accommodate based on what the people are doing, what they're capable of handling. So we don't put a great big boxer with somebody who might have a back problem, for example. But we also have fundraising that goes on. We have booths that we can just use people to help us come and stand at the booth, and there's pretty much something for anybody. And we love the diversity. So the more diverse the people are that try to help us, the better it is for us.
Sure, absolutely. And if you are, whether you're at home watching this, you're watching this on YouTube, you're listening to us on local radio, their website address is Journey Together Service Dog, singular, journeytogetherservicedog.org, and there's all kinds of information there. You can get in touch with them that way. And I know you guys are always in need of funds as well. $3,000 from the police only goes so far. Other than that fundraiser, real quickly, is there any other fundraiser that's coming up in the near future?
We're kind of coming to the end of the season. We had From Pet Fest was in Milwaukee. We were participants in that. The Animal Hospital of Oshkosh had their open house a couple months ago. We participated in that. So I think we're coming up in the holidays, and it's going to get a little quieter.
Okay.
And that's our time for us to place a couple of dogs with our clients.
Excellent. Well, speaking of the holidays, people are going to start shopping real soon. And if you go to Amazon.com and set yourself up, it's free to do. You set yourself up with Smile Amazon, and you guys are a registered 501c3 recipient. You can, just by purchasing your Christmas gifts or whatever online, a small percentage of that goes to the organization that you choose, and these folks would love it if you would pick Journey Together Service Dogs as the recipient. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank
It's
you
a
for
privilege.
having us.
Yes.
And we're going to do this again real soon when you get more dogs. And so thanks again, and thanks
Thank
to
you.
the dogs, and thanks to you, and of course to the crew. We will see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.